episode. While recording, my dogs wouldn't stop barking. There was no way to mute myself quick enough at some points to be able to block the barking, and I could not remove it throughout the episode. So please accept my apologies. This is my life. Now on to the show.
Hi, freaky friends. This is Margaret.
And this is Colleen.
And we're
the Cousins Weird.
And I think we did it at the same time.
That was real close if it wasn't perfect.
We did it slow.
The closest it's going to get doing it this way. For sure.
It's like we both puffed nitrous and did it, because I don't know if you ever did nitrous, but it makes everything sound super slow in your head. It's like the opposite of helium. And I don't know if everybody hears it or if it's just you. Like, it's one of those weird, like, I understand why they call it laughing gas, because, like, I'm like, whoa, I feel like I'm talking really slowly underwater. It's, like, hilarious.
That's funny.
Not that I'm not doing, that was college. We're not
You're not doing that right now, is what you're saying. Okay, well, that's good. Good.
No. But, so I was supposed to, I'm having issues with my new glasses. I get my new glasses a couple weeks ago, and I feel like I'm walking around with a fishbowl over my head, because that's how everything was looking, and I'm like, and when I first tried them on, I'm like, oh, she's like, oh, that is not a good sound. I'm like, no. I go, this is, I feel like I've just put a fishbowl over my head, and I'm looking out, and I've had issues with vertigo, so it's not like, it was one of those things where I'm like, this is going to give me vertigo and make me want to vomit, but she's like, oh, just give it a try them a little bit each day for the first, like, put them on first, don't wear your other glasses. And I tried it for like a week and a half. I'm like, no, I can't. Nope. So I went back and I had an appointment to get my eyes redone today, right? And I get down there and there's no parking spots available. And I mean, this is not a big place, right?
Right.
And so I go inside and all this, there's like, they have 4 seats to sit in to wait. They're all people sitting and there's a bunch of people standing around. I'm like, and I walk up to her and it's 12:30, which is my appointment. And she's like, well, I wanted to let you know that we're running a little behind. I'm like, well, how long is a little? And she's like,
I wanted to let you know. Well, after I got here.
Right. The next client who's going to be seen, their appointment was for 11:40.
Oh, so an hour basically behind.
Yeah, and I'm like, she's like, do you want to reschedule? I'm like, absolutely, because no. So I'm still waiting. But I mean, I think they give you like 100 days.
Right.
With your glasses. So hopefully this has like been my thing with, like, I have to see the ear, nose, and throat person again, and that's been rescheduled 3 friggin' times.
It's been like that with everything. Like, appointment, you can't get in places. It's like you can't get appointments. People that are super sick haven't been able to get into places, which makes no sense to me. So,
I know.
Yeah, it's just
like,
it's crazy.
First world problems, right? Like complaining about the eye doctor when people can't get basic medical care, So I won't complain. It's fine. I still have my glasses. I can see. We're good. If you didn't know, because you probably wouldn't, because why would you? This is our 3rd or 4th attempt at recording this episode.
Yes.
We tried yesterday and it was not gonna work. I've been sick, so
yeah.
I actually feel a lot better today, but I still don't want to expose Colleen's mom or dad to it. So, but yeah, we were having some issues yesterday, so we got frustrated, and we're like, we're just gonna do it tomorrow. I think it was the wind
universe was against us,
right? It really was. So,
yeah.
It
seems like things are good, so I think we're good.
Don't jinx it, Colleen.
I know. God, knock on something.
Yes. All right. So, are we ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So, this week's episode, we're going to be talking about Napoleon and his traveling penis. Because why not?
I guess if Napoleon travels, his penis goes with him, right? So
this was just his penis, I think.
Oh,
yeah, yes.
Oh well, then that's a whole different thing.
And I hope I don't bore y'all, because I'm gonna go through Napoleon's history, a brief history, because the war shit was really boring, and I had to read a lot of it, and I'm like, okay, we're not putting this in here because I don't want everyone to fall asleep. I personally find war crap boring. Napoleon, who was born Napoleon Buonaparte, was his actual last name. August 15th, 1769 in Ajaccio, Corsica. He died May 5th, 1821. He was 51 years old in Longwood, St. Helena, where he was exiled after he lost his war, basically.
Okay.
He was also known as the Corsican and the Little Corporal. We're going to be talking about his Little Corporal in a little bit. But he was everybody talks about like the Napoleon complex, and honestly, he was 5'6", which that's how tall my husband is, and that's not like, I wouldn't say my husband is overly short. He's taller than me.
Well, you're short, so really, you're really no one to compare.
The time for France at that time, that was the average height of a man. He was average height for that time. We're talking 1700s in France. That's about what people were. That's the size they were.
Yeah, I'm basically an Amazon, so.
Yes. I'm 5'4", so I'm average, maybe slightly under average for a woman, but like my husband's 5'6", that's perfectly fine for me. He was a French general, and eventually he became the first consul of France, and he was that from 1799 to 1804, and eventually from 1804 to 1814 he was the French emperor, and then he was a French emperor again in 1815. So he had a little gap there where he wasn't the emperor, and then he was the emperor again, because war. Corsica, everyone talks about him as being the Corsican, and I just thought that was another, like, I was like, does that mean French? Is it like a weird French thing? Corsica is actually an island in the Mediterranean Sea. It's 105 miles from the south of France, and it's also 56 miles from the northwest of Italy. So it gives you an idea. It's like in the Mediterranean Sea between France and Italy, closer to Italy. It was originally ruled by the Republic of Genoa, and from 1284 to 1755, and it was Italian speaking at that time. The predominant language was Genoese or Italian. It was a self-proclaimed republic until 1768, and then Genoa, because they were at war. There was tons of wars going on then all over Europe, everywhere. Genoa ceded it to Louis XV because when Corsica had like a uprising and they were trying to gain their independence from Genoa, they went to Genoa went to France to borrow money to help them fight this war from this country. And because they owed them so much money, this country they were trying to keep from becoming their own country, they ended up giving them to France. So it's like you borrowed money from France to stop that, to make it so they were always your country, and then you just gave them to France. So what was the point? If you think about it, it's like all those lives lost for basically
nothing.
It's like you still don't have it. So like, what was the point of that?
Right.
It was annexed by France in 1769. So technically it's still considered part of France, kind of like how Puerto Rico is part of the United States. Okay. That makes sense to you? Yeah. So Corsica is still technically part of France. Napoleon was the fourth child of Carlo Buonaparte, who was a lawyer, and Letizia Romolino. She was of Tuscan nobility, and they were married. Letizia was only 14 when she married Carlo. She ended up having 8 children with him, and Napoleon was the fourth child, but he was only the second child to survive. Like through childhood. Yeah. So he had an older brother, but from the age of 9, he was educated in France. They sent him to France to get his learning, He spent basically a year at a school in France, and then he ended up spending 5 years at a military college at Brienne, and then another year at a military academy in Paris. And when Napoleon was 15, this was in 1785, his father died of stomach cancer, and he became the head of the family. Even though he had an older brother, they all thought Napoleon was the one who was in charge. And we all kind of would get that vibe from him, like he's the man of the hour. You know, he's one of those where he's trying to make up for something that's small.
His little corporal.
His little corporal, yes.
Short man syndrome.
But he's not, it wasn't short. It was something else that was short.
Little peen syndrome.
Yes! He became a second lieutenant of artillery in the La Fière Regiment. It's a training school for young artillery officers, and he was like 15. So, I mean, like, he was young when he was, like, excelling in the military at a young age. Like, he read a lot.
That is super young.
He studied a lot of Roman, like, Caesar time military strategies. And you can see that a lot in how he was technically Italian. Like, they were Italian for a long time, his country.
Right.
And they had this Caesar thing going on. You know, like, Caesar was, like, the ultimate emperor of Italy, you know, and in a lot of the pictures that show you with his hand in his shirt, in his coat, that was a thing the Romans did. It was considered, like, when they would do public speaking, they would do that so that you wouldn't concentrate on their hands. You would think about what they were saying. But, like, so, like, him doing that was a lot, and even, like, in his deathbed, a lot of the paintings show him with a laurel wreath around his head, like Caesar had. So, I mean, he really had this, like, I want to be Caesar complex in him. He returned to Corsica in 1786. This was the year after his dad died. And he was there from 1786 to 1788. In 1791, he joined the Jacobin Club. And this was a revolutionary political club that favored a constitutional monarchy. So we're talking about the Great Terror. We're talking about the French Revolution with the guillotine. This is the startings of that. So, like, he was right there at the beginning, and he's like, even though he's in the French military, he was not for the monarchy. He wanted, like, a constitutional monarchy. Like,
gotcha.
You know what I mean? He's okay with there being a king or an emperor, but he wants it to be constitutional and have a Senate as well, which is kind of Roman. It's very Roman.
Right.
He quickly became the president of this club. He spoke out against the nobility, monks, and bishops. Like, he was really against, like, all that. Like, he was for the people. He was a people's person, you know. In September of 1791, he went on leave to go to Corsica, and he failed to return to France. And on January of 1792, he was listed as a deserter, which, you know, back then they would kill you if you deserted the army.
Right.
However, this was in January. In the following April, France declared war on Austria, and they reinstated him because they needed bodies for this war, and they didn't care. Like, he came back, like, just come back, we want you, you know what I mean? Like,
we need you.
We need your body, right?
Yeah.
And he eventually...
And your little corporal.
Right. He eventually earned the rank of captain in the army, and he was young. You know, he was probably 19 at this point. In the fall of 1793, the Revolutionary Assembly abolished the monarchy. We're talking, this is Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. They were the monarchy then. 1793 and 94 is when the Reign of Terror happened in France. So they abolished, this assembly abolished the monarchy, and then the Reign of Terror started, where they just started to bring people out in the street and chop off their head, you know?
Oh, yes,
in January,
that's fantastic.
Yep. January of 17